Don't worry, no one will remember what you did here anyway. Those words hung in the air as I sat in Scott's fancy office, looking at the severance papers I had just signed. 6 years of working 80-hour weeks, all finished with a digital signature and one careless remark. I kept my face calm, even though my chest felt tight. "Thank you for the opportunity," I said as I stood up from the chair. "Staying professional to the end. That's who I am." Julie Baker, Senior Systems Engineer. Well, former Senior Systems Engineer, as of 5 minutes ago. Scott Wolf, our smooth-talking CEO, didn't even glance up from his laptop. The sunlight from the tall windows shone on his perfectly styled hair. Those windows were added after our series of funding, $20 million, to help grow the company I helped build from the ground up. I walked past rows of engineers who didn't know I wouldn't be coming back tomorrow. Some were working on the very code I had written during endless late nights. That code was the foundation of our entire product. I created the system architecture back when we were still in that old, hot warehouse with no air conditioning, typing through sweat just to keep the project moving. "Heading out early?" Aaron asked from his desk. He was one of the new hires and had no clue what was going on. "Something like that," I replied, forcing a smile. I packed my few personal things quickly. A small plant, a photo of my sister's family, and a coffee mug. That was it. After 6 years, everything I had left fit into one canvas bag. I'd given the rest to this company. While I waited for the elevator, I felt a cold shiver run down my back. What Scott said about no one remembering my work wasn't just rude, it was wrong. My work is all over that system. The documentation follows my personal style, with notes that only I truly understand. I had always meant to write a full guide for the system I built, but I kept putting it off for more urgent work. It had been on my to-do list for 4 years. The elevator doors opened, and I stepped in. As they closed, I looked one last time at the office that had felt like my second home. A thought hit me: they really didn't understand what they had just done. I wasn't angry. Not yet. But I suddenly realized how much I was worth, and I remembered exactly where all the important files were: the original drafts, version logs, and emails about our system that had my name on them. My dad was a smart engineer too. Back in the 95S, he created a game-changing battery system. But when his company went public, they forced him out and erased his name from everything. I promised myself I'd never let that happen to me. Yet here I was, 31 years old, walking away from Quantum Shift with nothing but a severance check and a non-disclosure agreement. I had read the NDA carefully before signing. It protected their company secrets, but not my personal notes or the files I had already sent to my lawyer. I saw this coming 4 weeks ago: the quiet talks behind closed doors, the sudden meetings, and the way Scott started showing Tyler, the new engineering consultant, off to the investors. It wasn't paranoia. I was just ready. On my drive home, I called my lawyer, Lauren Bell. "I've been let go," I said. "They're bringing in someone with more experience." "I see," Lauren replied calmly. "And the severance?" 7 months' pay. Standard NDA. Nothing about intellectual property, except what's already in my contract. "Smart girl," she said, and I could hear the smile in her voice. "The files you sent me look solid. Let's meet tomorrow to go over your options." The next day, I didn't feel the usual urge to check work emails or Slack messages. Instead, I slept in until 10 a.m. for the first time in years, made a proper breakfast, and drove to Lauren's office. I felt strangely free. She had my documents spread out across her conference table: system diagrams, version logs, emails proving my work. Most important of all, proof that I was the one who built the custom login system that made Quantum Shift's product stand out from the rest. "You've been very detailed," Lauren said. "Most people don't keep records like this." "My dad always told me to keep proof," I replied. "So, what do you want to do with all of this?" she asked, motioning to the pile of documents showing 6 years of my work. I sat down and thought. I wasn't someone who wanted revenge. That's not how I was raised. But I was taught to know my value. "Nothing for now," I said. "But I want to be ready." Lauren nodded. She understood. "They'll come looking for you. Companies like this always do, once they realize what they've lost. And when they do, We'll be ready. I left her office feeling calm. For the first time in 6 years, my time belonged to me, and I planned to use it well. For weeks later, I was sitting at a beachside cafe, drinking an expensive latte and browsing job listings.
My phone rang.
The caller ID said Larry David, Quantum Shift's CTO. Julie, he said, trying to sound cheerful. How have you been? I'm fine, Larry, I said in a flat tone. What do you need? Well, the team is working on the next release, and they have some questions about the architecture you built. I was hoping you might have time for a quick consultation. I took a slow sip of my coffee. Consultation, an interesting choice of words. I don't think that would be appropriate, considering how I left, I said calmly. Larry hesitated. Look, Julie, we're willing to pay you for your time. Scott may have acted too quickly. Too quickly? I repeated. Is that what we're calling it? There was silence. The documentation is a bit specific, he said. I almost laughed. Specific was a nice way of saying that no one could understand my notes. Yes, I documented everything, but in a way that made sense only to me. I'm really busy right now, I said. Maybe Tyler, with all his experience, can figure it out. Julie, Larry began, but I cut him off. I wish you all the best, Larry. Really? I ended the call. A few seconds later, my phone buzzed with a text from him. We can double your consultation rate. Please reconsider. I put my phone down without replying. Let them worry for a while. That evening, while I was cooking dinner, I got an email from Adam Driver, one of the junior engineers I had mentored. The subject line said, "You won't believe this." Adam had always appreciated me. I'd helped him when others didn't have time. The message was short. Julie, everything's falling apart here. Tyler doesn't understand your authentication system. For clients are having major problems after the latest update. Scott is blaming the engineering team, but we all know it's because no one can figure out your architecture. Larry is freaking out.
Just thought you should know.
We miss you. I sat down at the kitchen counter and stared at the email. I didn't expect things to fall apart this fast. Part of me felt bad for the team. Most of them were good people in a tough spot. But another part of me, the part that remembered Scott's smug face, felt a little satisfaction. Then my phone rang again. It was Lauren. I just got a call from Quantum Shift's legal team, she said. They want to talk about a consulting deal. That surprised me. Things were clearly falling apart faster than I thought. They're having some technical difficulties, Lauren added, sounding amused. What should we do? I asked. I say let them sweat a little longer, she replied. The more desperate they are, the stronger your position. As I hung up, I felt something shift inside me. For the first time, I realized I was the one in control. This wasn't about getting even. It was about being recognized for the work I had done. And it looked like that moment was finally here. By the 5th week after I left, the calls came more often. Larry.
Tyler.
Even Adam, sending quiet messages asking for help. I kept my distance. When I did reply, I gave vague answers. While they scrambled, I stayed busy. I met with 3 rival companies not to get a job, but to see what else was out there. I wanted to understand my value in the market. Then, on a bright Friday morning, exactly 1 month after I cleared out my desk, Scott himself called. Julie, he said, trying to sound confident. I think we got off on the wrong foot. The board and I have been talking about your departure, and we believe there might have been a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding. A misunderstanding, I repeated, keeping my voice calm. About what, exactly? About your value to the company, Scott said. It sounded like it was hard for him to admit. We'd like to bring you back as a consultant to help with the transition. I almost said, what about no one remembering my contributions? But I held back. No need to show my cards so soon. I'm not interested in consulting, I said. But thank you for the offer. Julie, be reasonable. We're offering a large consulting fee, 6 figures, for just a few weeks of work. I'm quite busy right now, I replied, repeating what I'd told Larry. Best of luck with everything. I hung up before he could say anything else and called Lauren right away. Scott just called, I told her. He offered me a consulting role. 6 figures. They're getting desperate, Lauren said. but we need to be careful. Have you been keeping an eye on their product?
I had.
Quantum Shift's client dashboard was having major problems. It kept going down. Their support team on Twitter was working overtime answering complaints. The company's stock had dropped 25% in just a week. It's not looking good for them, I said. Perfect, Lauren replied. I've been digging around too. Did you know Scott claimed your authentication system as his own when talking to investors? I felt a cold chill run through me. What? I have a contact on their board. Scott has been taking credit for your work for years. The investors thought they were funding his ideas. They didn't realize you built the core system. That hit me hard. It was one thing to be pushed out, but stealing credit? That crossed a line. What's our next move? I asked, my voice firm. We wait one more week, Lauren said. Let things get worse for them. Then we send a formal notice saying you still own the intellectual property. Can we really do that? I signed an employment contract. Yes, but the contract covers work you did while working there. You built the first version of that authentication system on your own before you ever joined Quantum Shift. You still have the old GitLab repo with the dates to prove it. You brought it with you and improved it for them, but the core idea? That's yours. I thought back to those early days, working on weekends, coding in my apartment, building the system as a personal side project. That was before Scott even reached out to me about a job. And I remember telling him about it. When I was first hired, I told Scott about the system I had built, but he brushed it off like it didn't matter. Now, that choice might cost him a lot. So, we have leverage, I said slowly, starting to understand. We have more than leverage, Lauren replied. We have a legal claim. If we push it, we could shut their whole operation down. I leaned back in my chair, taking it all in. I had walked away from Quantum Shift feeling powerless. Now, everything had changed so much that I almost felt bad for them. Almost. 6 weeks after I left, things at Quantum Shift hit a breaking point. Their stock had dropped another 40%, and there were rumors online that clients were leaving. My phone had stopped ringing, a silence that felt more serious than the calls ever did. I was at home watching a documentary when the doorbell rang. I opened the door and was shocked to see Kelly Riley, the lead investor from Threshold Ventures, standing there. Ms. Baker, she said, looking serious. Sorry to show up like this, but it couldn't wait. May I come in? I hesitated for a moment, then stepped aside and let her in. Kelly had always been polite during investor meetings, but we'd never spoken alone before. I'll be direct, she said, sitting on my couch. Quantum Shift is in trouble, and I think you know why. I've heard there are some technical problems, I said carefully. Kelly gave me a sharp look. The authentication system is failing, and no one can fix it. Scott told us they had backup plans in case anyone left, but clearly, that wasn't true. I said nothing and waited for her to go on. What's even more troubling, she continued, is that we found out Scott wasn't honest about who led the technical work. He told us he was the one who designed the system, and that you just helped carry out his ideas. I let out a bitter laugh. Is that what he said?
Yes.
But after reviewing everything, our technical advisors now know the truth. You were the real architect of the system. Scott lied about your role to get our investment. I took a deep breath. I'm not surprised, but I am disappointed. So am I, Kelly said. Threshold Ventures invested $20 million based on false information. That's why I'm here, Ms. Baker. The board has called an emergency meeting for tomorrow. She paused, then added, Scott doesn't know yet. I'm meeting with you because I believe you need to be at this board meeting, Kelly said. This caught me off guard. I had expected legal talks, not an invite to meet with the board. What exactly are you asking me to do?
I said.
I'm asking you to tell the truth, Kelly replied. Help us understand the situation and what options we have. In return, I promise your work will be fully recognized and valued. I thought for a moment. Thank you, Ms. Riley, I said. But my lawyer has advised me not to speak directly with Quantum Shift unless I have legal protection. Kelly nodded, not surprised. I understand. What if your lawyer joins the meeting? This isn't about secret deals, it's about being honest. The investors need to know what's really going on. I thought about it. Going to the board meeting could be risky, but it also gave me the chance to speak directly to the people who had the power to make real changes. "I'll talk to my attorney," I said at last. "Of course," Kelly replied as she stood up. "The meeting is at 11 a.m. tomorrow. I hope you'll be there." After she left, I called Lauren and told her everything. "This is interesting," Lauren said. "Sooner than I expected, but it could work in your favor. If you go, you'll be in a strong position, not a weak one." "What about the plan to send the legal notice?" I asked. "We'll still do it. In fact, I think we should send it tonight so they know where you stand before the meeting." I agreed, and Lauren said she'd send it right away. That night, I barely slept. Tomorrow would be a meeting I hadn't planned on, but now I looked forward to it. I wasn't after revenge. I just wanted the truth to be known. Scott had tried to erase my name from Quantum Shift's story. Tomorrow, I would write myself back in for good. The Quantum Shift office looked exactly the same as when I left 7 weeks ago. But everything felt different now. I walked through the front lobby with Lauren beside me. People stared as we passed. As I walked past, people whispered behind me all the way to the main conference room. The air felt heavy with tension when we walked in. Around the long table sat the board members, Kelly Riley, 3 other investors, and the company's top executives. Scott was at the head of the table, but his usual confident smile was gone. Larry, the CTO, looked exhausted, like he hadn't slept in days. "Miss Baker, thank you for coming," Kelly said, standing to greet me. "And this must be your lawyer, Miss Bell." "That's right," Lauren said smoothly, placing her briefcase on the table. "We got your invitation, and we're here in good faith. But I should mention that we sent a formal notice last night to Quantum Shift's legal team, saying Julie still owns some of the intellectual property." Scott's face turned red. "This is ridiculous. You signed a contract that clearly says all work belongs to the company." "I know what I signed," I replied calmly. "But the authentication system we're talking about was built before I started working at Quantum Shift. I have proof, including the original GitLab files with timestamps." One of the board members, Henry Golding from Magnitude Capital, leaned forward. "Is this true, Scott? Did you know about this?" Scott's jaw tightened. "Julie's twisting the truth. She may have written some early code, but all the real work was done while she was employed here." I took out my laptop and connected it to the big screen in the room. "With your permission," I said, "I'd like to show you something." Kelly nodded. I pulled up the GitLab page and showed the board the commit history. It clearly showed that the project started before I joined the company. Then I showed early emails between me and Scott, where I clearly told him I was bringing my system to the team. Lauren added, "As you can see, Mr. Wolf acknowledged Julie's work in these emails. But he never arranged a legal transfer of her system to the company. The standard contract doesn't cover work created before she joined." The room went quiet. The board members looked at each other. Scott shifted in his seat, clearly uncomfortable. "There's more," I said, bringing up slides from past investor presentations. "These are from the Series A pitch. The authentication system is shown as a major selling point. But you'll notice my name is missing from all the credits." Henry Golding took off his glasses and rubbed his eyes. "Scott, you told us you were the one who designed all this." "I oversaw the development," Scott said quickly. "Overseeing is not the same as creating," I said. "And your idea of oversight was setting impossible deadlines and then taking credit when we delivered." Larry, who had been quiet the whole time, finally cleared his throat. "I can confirm that Julie was the lead designer of the authentication system," Larry said. "Without her, we haven't been able to manage it properly, as the last 7 weeks have shown." Scott shot Larry a sharp look, but it was too late. The damage was done. The investors now looked at Scott with clear doubt. "What exactly are you asking for, Ms. Baker?" one of the board members asked. Lauren stepped in. "My client isn't trying to bring down Quantum Shift. She still believes in the product she helped build. But she wants proper credit for her work, fair payment for her intellectual property, and a guarantee that her work won't be misrepresented again." "And if we don't agree to that?" Scott asked, clearly angry. "Then the legal notice we sent stands," Lauren replied calmly. "Quantum Shift will be legally blocked from using the authentication system. Without it, your product won't work. Everyone in the room seemed to realize the seriousness of the situation all at once. Quantum Shift's $20 million valuation, its entire future, was at risk. And I, the engineer they once pushed aside, now held the key. The emergency board meeting went on for another 5 hours. As more facts came out, Scott's position grew weaker. The board, who had seemed unsure at first, began to believe what I was saying. The evidence spoke for itself. Henry Golding eventually asked for a short break. The board members left the room to talk privately. When they returned, Kelly Riley stood and spoke with new authority. After careful thought, the board has made some decisions, she said. First, we're making a leadership change right away. Scott, we respect what you've done in starting Quantum Shift, but it's clear there were serious misrepresentations under your leadership. Scott's face turned pale. You can't be serious. I built this company from the ground up. With Julie's technology, Henry Golding said. And that's something you chose to hide from us. Second, Kelly continued, we're offering Julie the role of Chief Technology Officer, along with a fair share in company ownership and full credit for her past work. My heart was racing. This was more than I ever expected. Also, she said, we're proposing a licensing agreement for the authentication system, including royalties from any future revenue it helps bring in. Lauren and I exchanged a look. This was nearly everything we had asked for. And finally, Kelly said, we'll release a public statement correcting the company's history, clearly naming Julie as the original creator of our core technology. Scott suddenly stood up. This is a mistake. You're handing the company over to someone who's holding it hostage. No, Scott, I said quietly. I'm not holding it hostage. I'm just making sure the truth is finally told. Henry Golding nodded. The board's decision is final. You can stay on in a smaller role as a strategic advisor, or you can leave. It's up to you. Scott looked around the room, searching for support, but no one met his eyes. He didn't say a word. He simply turned and stormed out, slamming the door behind him. In the quiet that followed, I realized something important. What I felt wasn't revenge. It was justice. 4 months later, I stood on a small stage at Quantum Shift's headquarters, speaking to our team and a few tech reporters. The company had changed a lot. Today is a big step forward. I began. With the launch of our new platform update, we're not just adding new features. We're rebuilding this company on honesty and teamwork. The authentication system I had once built alone was now managed by a team of skilled engineers. Everyone got proper credit for their work. The documentation was clear and complete, so the company would never again rely on one person's knowledge. After the event, Kelly came over with a warm smile. The investors are really happy, she said. User complaints are down 95%, and old clients are starting to come back. It's a team effort, I replied, truly proud of what we had achieved together. That's true, Kelly said, but your leadership made it all possible. Oh, and have you heard about Scott? I shook my head. Scott had chosen to leave the company instead of taking the smaller role the board offered him. He's trying to start another company, Kelly said. But it's been tough. Investors are hesitant. Word gets around fast in this business. I felt a quick, quiet wave of sympathy. I hope he learned something from all this.
So do I, Kelly said.
But some lessons come at a high price. Later that day, I received an unexpected email. It was from Scott. It was short. Julie, I owe you an apology. I should have respected your work instead of trying to take credit. The company is in better hands with you.
Scott.
I sat at my desk, thinking about what to say. In the end, I kept it simple. Scott, thank you for the apology. I wish you the best with your next steps. Julie, some lessons hurt the most but teach the most. This wasn't about forgetting the past, it was about finally telling the truth. And that was something worth fighting for.